Let's talk about this with Minnesota Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips. Congressman Phillips, good to see you. You have recently been talking publicly about considering challenging President Biden in the Democratic primaries. Do today's developments, a special counsel investigating Hunter Biden, does it make that more or less likely?
Well, Jake, let me start by changing the conversation from me. It's not about me. This is about a message and a wake-up call that I am trying my darndest to deliver to Democrats, 55% of whom, before today's news, wanted an alternative to the three candidates in the primary right now. And I've said that from the very beginning. I've had concerns. The numbers are horrific, the polling numbers. 55% of Democrats wanting an alternative. Independents, about 73% want an alternative. And let me just assume that 100% of moderate Republican never-Trumpers are saying we want an alternative. We will not vote for the sitting president. And I want to share with everybody, I love Joe Biden. I think he's a man of decency, of competency. His record, extraordinary. I voted for it. I've helped market it and distribute it. I think the world of him. But I also believe my job is not duty-bound to the president, to my party, but to the Constitution and country. And right now, I have grave concerns based on the fact that 55% of Democrats are saying we want alternatives. I am scared. I'm trying to raise that bell, be the clarion call, if you will. And I've said from the get-go as well, I am not best positioned to do this. There are ample, well-prepared, competent people of great character ready to go. And I think if the president would consider passing that torch now, just imagine, Jake, the energy behind a next generation on the Democratic primary stage. Perhaps a woman at the top of the ticket in a year in which reproductive rights are going to be front and center, other than the former president being under indictment and now the son of the president we have right now being subject to a special counsel. It's a sad day for America. I want to start with that. I do not think the president is corrupt. I want to make that really clear. But we are duty-bound to investigate, to ensure the facts come out. And the fact is, we don't know where this goes. And I think it's too much risk for Democrats to take this chance without a backup plan, because what we have right now in reserve is awfully consequential and frankly frightening.
So you are worried that a special counsel probe of Hunter Biden could potentially hurt President Biden, not only politically, but you said who knows where this goes in terms of maybe splashing on the president himself.
Jake, I really cannot imagine that this reaches the president. I think it's fairly clear that Hunter Biden, a former addict, this is unsavory, probably unethical, and possibly illegal. Some of what he did, we will find out. I don't think it touches the president, but we all know what kind of an era we live in. You know, it's not what's real, it's how people feel. And these numbers I shared earlier that are so horrendous and frightening were before the news of today. If anybody believes this doesn't hurt, you must be living in a different world than I am. And I'm simply calling attention to the facts. And I'm concerned about the Democratic establishment working much too hard to prevent any new entrants, to prevent competition, instead pursuing a coronation. And frankly, we did something similar in 2008. And thank goodness, a first-term senator from the state of Illinois raised his hand, stood up, met the moment, and we had Barack Obama become United States president. I just think that we should be mindful of history, recognize the consequences of not having a backup plan, Jake, because one of the core elements of successful leadership is a succession plan, being sure that there's somebody able, ready to go. And I'd like to see the president actually invite people to the primary stage. And again, not me. You know, I'm a third-term congressman from Minnesota. I think I'm able and prepared for the job. But I'm a third-term congressman. I have 60,000 Twitter followers and $250,000 in my campaign account. There are people ready to go, governors in particular, moderate governors from the heartland, that I think, I'll tell you what, Jake, I've been someone who always reaches out to people before I talk about them. And sadly, some have asked that I not even reference their names right now, which is a pretty good indicator of how this establishment blocks, prevents, and silences people. And I'm here to speak. I think I'm the only one. I think I'm the only member of the Congress, a Democrat, out of 262 people, giving voice to the majority of Democratic voters in the country and those 80% of independents who are saying the exact same thing. That's my job, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Doing the math, and I'm doing this on the fly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I can only think of 2 Democratic governors from the heartland who are women, one of whom is from Kansas and one of whom is from Michigan. Are you suggesting that one of them, specifically, I'm just to take a leap here, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, is somebody you would like to see throw her hat into the ring?
I think there are about 5 names. Everybody watching right now probably knows who they are. They're on the bench. They've got organization. They would have institutional support. They have access to the extraordinary amount of money, resources necessary to mount a credible primary campaign.
Everybody doesn't know who they are. I hate to be rude, but everybody doesn't know who they are because, as you note, President Biden is basically only being challenged by anti-vaxxer Robert Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson, maybe by you, although 60,000 Twitter followers and $250,000 in the bank doesn't exactly sound like you want to enter the race. So I'm just guessing. Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Jared Polis, Pete Buttigieg. You haven't mentioned or alluded to Vice President Harris, but she certainly is a woman, and she's next in line. Sure. Do you want all those individuals to enter the race?
Jake, let me just say this. Like I said, right now the only thing preventing 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of the names you just mentioned from appearing on that stage and making their case to Democratic voters, the only thing preventing that is we have an incumbent president who essentially, with an institution around him, the establishment, protecting those entrants. Nobody is willing to take a step that might affect their future. Perhaps that's why I'm the only one doing this. This is not about re-election for me. This is about our country, the future of democracy, and doing anything I possibly can to stop Donald Trump from returning to the White House. Jake, in 2016, I woke up the morning after the election. I saw fear in my daughter's eyes for the very first time in my life, and I promised them I would do something. I ran for this seat, flipped a district that had been in Republican hands for 60 years because of Donald Trump. So for anybody who thinks I'm trying to do something to undermine Democratic chances, that I'm paving a path for Donald Trump, it's actually, if you look carefully at what I'm trying to say, it is just the opposite. And there are about 6 people maybe that are prepared. I like people that have some executive experience, that have some legislative experience, and are people of good character and competency. And yes, I think it's time to turn the page. Americans are asking to turn the page. And by the way, it's not too late. If in 6 weeks, 6 months, it might be. So this has to be litigated, and the conversations have to start right now. That is the only thing that I'm here to ask. That's my job.
Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips from the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Have a good weekend.